Okay.
Let's see. Now he's not there.
He's probably refreshed. He'll be back, and then invite him again when you see him in the list.
Okay, where do I see? Where will I see him?
He's right there. Click on Meatbag. And then invite co-host again.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, we're back.
Okay. So, was your point that DNA is I guess kind of a written language, kind of proof of a creator, or?
I wouldn't. I think that would be circular. That could be circular reasoning. I'm just saying that. The fact there's so many life forms proves that DNA doesn't have to be one particular, configuration to work. But certainly there's far more configurations that don't work.
That's true.
And and what I'm saying is that that initially a change in the genetic code arises by chance.
Yes.
Before natural selection is able to act on it. But once once something happens, natural selection can only favor it if that particular tiny change in itself improves the animal's survival or his mating opportunities, or what have you. It may be that many changes that arise by accident, would later be combined with other changes, and the combination of changes would be beneficial. But it seems to me likely that when you look at the complexity of life, it's hard for me to believe that we have an unbroken chain of chance events that were fortuitous and then acted upon by natural selection. Because when you start looking at the odds of that, it seems like even many evolutionists say that this is something that may be a once in a jillion year event that happened here on this planet, because I believe in natural selection. I believe that things do change by accident and that can be fortuitous and favored. And certainly we've bred many animals into different species that can no longer mate and produce fertile offspring. So
Let me ask you a real quick question. Do you think that natural selection is efficient?
Sure.
Does it select for the best possible outcome among the choices?
Well, that's another problem I have with natural selection is that, yes, that's another problem I have with natural selection is that things that are fortuitous for the individual often aren't going to be fortuitous for the species as a whole. And the other thing is that if you look at the history of animals adapting to dramatic changes in their environment, it seems to me, like I say, that we should be expecting that most of those things are adaptations that they're designed to do already, that it's a capability that they have, because to go from to change a metabolism from being adapted to a dry climate to one where there's abundant water and different problems, might be a very complex thing. So that's an argument for creation, not for evolution. So it becomes the question, even if species do go from one species to another species, it seems probable to me that is evidence of a design process, because there's no way for that to evolve.
Well, let me give you just an example of how evolution, natural selection, can be very efficient. Have you ever heard of sickle cell?
Mm-hmm.
It's an incomplete incomplete recessive dominant or whatever disease, in which cells, they have the sickle-shaped appearance when both parents give that trait to their child. But when only one gives it, that trait is actually beneficial for fighting off malaria. Now that trait would have been bred out unless the beneficiality to resisting to malaria wasn't there. So my point is that these various mutations, these various things, they get picked up by natural selection. It makes it so that those particular individuals are able to reproduce, and others are less successful at doing so. It basically, evolution itself is a very efficient way of designing something. They do that now with computers. They do it with airplanes. Most airplane and computer design, it's all evolved programming. That's not to say that it's intelligently guided, though. It's guided in a way, but it doesn't necessarily need a somebody controlling everything, putting it all together.
Well, I look at, I've been casually wondered whether the squirrels that cross streets on the power lines would might someday outbreed the ones that run across the road and get mowed down, and whether the transformers would win or whether the cars would win on favoring one or the other. I believe in natural selection, and I think that I look at what how we've guided natural selection, just in the, or maybe it's unnatural selection, like my poodle is descended from a wolf, and you put a wolf next to a toy poodle, and it's a pretty profound thing difference that you're looking at. The distinction I'm making is that, for example, it wouldn't surprise me if if some polar bears started having colored coats as the ice disappears, and they have to switch to a more temperate habitat. The thing that disturbs me are two things. To go from just a jumble of chemicals that do indeed exist in nature and in interstellar clouds and everything else. I understand the ingredients to life are all around us. Shake it up in a tube long enough and something grows eventually. That is as large a step, at least, as it is to go from a single cell to a whale or a human being. In terms of the amount of sophisticated ordering of matter that has to take place. And I'm aware that Darwin, for example, made arguments that birds ran first, and then, like the ostrich, they just used these evolving wings to kind of give them a little lift so they could run better on the ground, and then they kept incrementally improving until some birds could actually fly. And